Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Mufleh and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. We are your hosts, Mufleh and Jasper Rivers. Jasper, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Jasper right now is at his parents' house in the lovely country of the Netherlands. You're spending some good family time before you venture over to the U.S., and you're going to be joining me in Vegas shortly.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And you know, I forgot to tell you recently, I just flown back from Michigan to LA, and this is so weird. I was just randomly getting food somewhere, and I asked if I could sit by somebody to share a outlet. I need to charge my phone. And we started talking. He had just come back from Thailand and Vietnam, and he knew about you. He knew about your travel blog. He was a reader and a bit of a fan, so I don't know if I told you that, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that doesn't really surprise me. It's pretty much everyone knows about it.
Your guy was pretty
not really
legendary. No, but yeah, it was really cool. He's a big fan. All right, so today we have a really cool guest, a true and tried fan of Airbnb. She's extremely passionate about the company and everything that they've done. Her name is Nina Mufleh. She is in San Francisco, and she's got a lot to share with everybody about everything that she knows, and also her current quest, which I'll let her talk about. So without further ado, Nina, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Nina and me and Jasper, we all have a couple mutual friends in common, which is really cool. But so Nina, why don't you give everybody, as we jump into this, give everybody a little bit of your background and tell us how you came to learn about Airbnb and got so interested.
Absolutely. So I came to learn about Airbnb a few years ago when I was traveling to Austin for South by Southwest. And as anybody who's been to any major event anywhere can pretty much attest, prices of hotels tend to skyrocket. It becomes really difficult to find a place. So a friend of mine had hooked up an Airbnb listing that we all decided to share. And I just kind of immediately fell in love with it. I had a great first experience, a wonderful host that, left little chocolate bars around the house and made sure we felt really welcome and understood Austin and kind of incorporated as much of the culture into her home as possible. And so since then, I started traveling more frequently and using Airbnb in almost every destination that I went to, and sort of fell in love with it as a platform for so many reasons, from the convenience to the way I think it bridges dialogue and conversation around the world was fantastic.
That's really cool that you started out in Austin for the conference, because did you know that that's where Airbnb originally launched?
I did not know that, actually, no.
Yeah, well, I'm creating a post about the history of Airbnb right now, so I'm really going through a lot of material. And they launched at South by Southwest because they figured that's where people are looking for accommodation, and they actually stayed with an Airbnb host there back in 2008, and that's when they realized that they had to have a payment system, because when they started out, they figured people can just pay in cash. So they were greeted by the host, and at some point, the host, had to ask for the money, right? Mm-hmm. And then I think Brian actually didn't have the money, so he had to go to the cash machine. So he's like, "Can we pay tomorrow?" And then he felt like, this is not right. There's a better solution for this money exchange thing.
Oh, that's fascinating. I never knew that story. So yeah, there you go. Another point of coincidence between me and the company.
Yeah. So it's almost like it's just meant to be.
Yeah, I guess so.
But we'll talk more about your aspirations with Airbnb. But what was so you've used Airbnb a couple times during your travels? Did you go to like some other countries, and what's your experience?
Yeah, so up until a year ago, I was living in the Middle East where I pretty much built my career for the past decade. And I've been fortunate enough for the past couple of years to dabble in some freelance consultancy. So it gave me the flexibility to take on a few projects and then travel in between projects. And so I spent a couple months in New York, Airbnb there, traveled to Dubai for a little bit, Airbnb there. And then just little trips that I would take with friends kind of all over the world. It was really, really fortunate to be able to have that exposure and that opportunity.
So tell us about Nina for Airbnb.com. How did this come about? How did you begin your research, all that?
So, like I said, I've been in the Middle East for a while. I built a pretty successful career there, and about a year ago decided that I wanted to move to San Francisco. And I knew that it would be a challenge. It's obviously a very talented market, but I didn't expect the challenge to be this intense. So I went about all the usual ways of applying to different roles at different companies, Airbnb included, and many other top tech companies, wanting to get onto sort of their marketing teams and be in-house rather than on the agency side. And after months of going through the same process and realizing that I wasn't really making any progress, I thought it was time to utilize my own skill set as a marketer and sort of think of myself as the product and try to attach myself to a brand and show them rather than tell them what I can do. So I guess you could say it came out a little bit from desperation in trying to get attention and many, many failed attempts at the traditional route. So I initially started with another idea where I wanted to create a social media competition for hosts worldwide and get them active and involved, and hoping that that would sort of land on the radar of many of the executives at Airbnb, and they would say, hey, who's this crazy host doing something really cool on social media? But that initial plan ended up to be challenging in its own way, so I sort of pivoted into creating a report about a company that I know a lot about and a region that I know a lot about, and sort of put it together in a way that I thought told a very good story about my skill set and my passion for that company.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the website right now, Nina4, as in the number 4, and then Airbnb.com. Mm-hmm. And when I first saw it, I randomly saw a tweet on Twitter to Brian Chesky, and he responded to it, and a bunch of other people responded to it. So it seemed like there was kind of a little buzz going on. And I checked out the website, and I was very impressed. I was like, wow, you've put a lot of work and effort into this website. It shows a lot of research, a lot of interesting information. And I just thought, wow, this is what an awesome way to apply for a job. You know, really creative and out of the box thinking.
Thanks.
And, I was thinking, wow, you really must love Airbnb a lot.
You know, I really do, but I also really love looking at data and seeing how it can tell a story. So it was pretty much driven by my curiosity, kind of looking at all the different angles for Airbnb in the Middle East. And it started off with just exploring some of the data of how many listings do they have and reviews and sort of the community size. And then from there sort of grew into like this obsessive, like wanting to understand more about it for my own reasons and then putting it into the story. So it was a really exciting project to work on.
How much time did you spend building this? Because it seems pretty comprehensive.
So I spent about a couple of days gathering all the data and sort of formatting how I would want the story to flow. And then it took about a week of working with a very talented designer that she pretty much put it all together in a way that she sort of communicated the Airbnb look and feel, and we did a lot of back and forth on, getting the exact details right, so that there would even be subtle messages within the design that could appeal to them. So if you scroll all the way to the end, even you'll notice there's a section saying, what can I do here? And we wanted to make sure we had all the right images that told a story for the marketing team and the operations team and the business development team. And then finally, sort of an internal joke of they have this sort of entrepreneurial thing going on called OK Coffee, where a couple of the team members serve average cups of coffee a day. So we went through to find the right design that could kind of communicate each one of these and the right visuals from different parts of the web to get it together. So that took about a week. And then, of course, there was the technical challenge of finding a way to build it sort of quickly and in a very cost-effective way. So I came across a site called Wix, which is basically like a WYSIWYG editor that you can build your own websites, and it was fantastic for this purpose. So we took all the design images and sort of drag and drop them into this blank template until it looked like the original design. Because I don't have a technical background, and I just wanted to kind of, wrap this up real quick and finish it. So it sort of used the online options to complete it and then get it launched.
We noticed that in some of these text bubbles, you've used that exact pinkish red color that's found all over the website. We also use that in our book as well to give somewhat of the same feel. I think you've done a much better job as far as really replicating or fitting into that exact feel. But yeah, no, it looks great.
Thank you.
And I want to say one thing which I just noticed, which I thought was very subtle. You say why I belong at Airbnb, and then it says be a serial entrepreneur. Cereal spelled as the cereal, the breakfast stuff. Yeah. And I don't know if most people probably know this story. And this is, or maybe you can tell the cereal story.
So this whole slide is actually taken straight from the company values. One of the things that I really love about Airbnb is how much they cherish their internal culture, and how no matter how attractive a candidate might look, they really won't go forward unless they feel that person is a fit for the culture. So I've been sort of obsessing about their sort of 6 bullet points of culture for a while and looking at them. So I went through the site, pulled out these exact 6 culture points, and one of them being be a serial entrepreneur is something that they really cherish in their internal team members. And the story behind that is that when the co-founders were looking for a way to, I think it was generate revenue and basically just try to keep the company running, it was during the Democratic National Convention, I think, or one of the conventions, they created cereal boxes of John McCain and Obama O's and sold those as a way to sort of market what they were doing and raise some cash. So that's the kind of internal story of the serial entrepreneur. And I thought it was really funny because some people would come back to me and say, I can't believe you had such an obvious grammatical mistake in there. And I thought, well, at least some people get it.
Well, it's put in quotes. And by the way, I think the McCain cereal was called Captain McCain's or something like that.
Yes.
And one other addition, which I'm sure you know, but just for the listeners who don't, I believe, and Jasper can also chime in if I am characterizing this incorrectly, but I believe they didn't make any money from the Captain McCain's, but all the money, the $30-some thousand that they made, all came from the Obama O's.
That's correct.
Interesting. I did not know that part of the story either.
Yeah.
And guess what they did with the Captain McCain's?
Yeah, I remember this too. Go ahead.
So because they ran out of money, they couldn't buy any food, so they ended up eating 500 boxes of Captain McCain cereals. But they did give a couple boxes away as well, which is another really interesting story. But we'll get into that another time. And
the design, if you look at you can still find online pictures of the boxes, and they were actually really well designed. They were really, really cool logos.
Yeah.
So this was fun. It's cool. And I think at that time when they made that money, they were in a certain amount of credit card debt. I think they used the money from the Obama O's to pay off the credit card debt, and then that got them back to 0.0, and then they built from there.
That's right, and you can still see the boxes if you go to airbnb.com/ObamaOs, so that's OBAMAOS. You can actually see the boxes, and you can listen to the jingles, because they also created some really funny jingles.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know there were jingles. I'm going to check that out right when we hang up.
Yeah, the jingles are pretty awesome, and they were selling these boxes for $40 a box, but there was just random normal cereal in there, it wasn't anything special. They literally went to the supermarket, buy up all the cereal, go back to the apartment, put these boxes together, and sell them for $40. So they did a pretty good job. I think that's actually the reason why the David Graham of Y Combinator decided to invest in them, because he actually didn't really believe in the Airbnb idea, but he just thought okay, these guys, if they can sell cereal for $40 a box, you know, and then they can probably sell anything.
That makes sense.
As you've been doing your research and diving into the company analytics and data, what are some of the coolest things that you've discovered?
Well, I'd say in terms of from an external point of view, one of the coolest things that I've noticed since I moved to San Francisco is how open they are as a company. I'm sure you've seen how kind of accessible most of the executives are on Twitter and other social media platforms, which is great. But I'm really seeing that sort of translated into everything that they do. So they do a lot of events for hosts here. They do a lot of community events, community service events as well. And I just find it fascinating that they're just so connected to their hosts and their guests, and they're a very inclusive company in that way, which I find really exciting.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. Me and Josefa, we were at the Airbnb Open, and yeah, they came out to have drinks with us, and everyone was able to get a couple pictures and talk to them, and very casual, very very cool. I am trying to get Brian on the podcast, by the way, which is
that would be exciting.
Which is a bit, it's just not that's not the easiest person to get on a podcast because he's probably a little bit busy, but I'm working on it, so hopefully that we'll get that soon.
Good luck with that. I'll make sure to listen.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's talk about how's it going? Like, you've put in all this effort. I think you did an awesome job. What's the result so far?
So I don't have any concrete results so far, but one exciting thing that has happened is that this has gotten the attention of a lot of different companies in the Bay Area, which was really my extended goal. I wanted to direct this at Airbnb, since that's definitely one of the top companies that I would love to work for. But at the end of the day, I just want to get my career started in the US. So it's been really exciting that in the past month, I've gone from sort of, really hunting down and sort of begging for interviews with certain companies to getting to the point where I'm finally having very productive conversations with a lot of the companies that have been on my radar for a while. Mm-hmm. So hopefully within the next few weeks, that'll progress into something more tangible with at least one or two of them. But it's been a really exciting process so far.
Awesome. Yeah, you've definitely put yourself on the map, I think, by doing this. So I would almost say this should be included in some those books that are out there that teach you how to get a job.
It's kind of crazy, I've seen so many people start referencing it in blog posts and in presentations, and I read about them and I think, oh my God, that's my story. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's been cool.
It's just I don't think I'll ever get a job again. But if I had to get one, I would totally take this route.
Well, if I could get your lifestyle of just traveling and enjoying it without a job, I think I'd switch.
Even for a job at Airbnb?
Maybe that would be the exception.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your hosting experience, because you have been a host as well, and you still are, right?
Yeah, so when I first moved to San Francisco, I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to kind of understand, especially because I wanted to work so badly at Airbnb, I thought it would be really important to understand, from a guest perspective and from a host perspective, what it feels like. And so I immediately started hosting, and I can see such a huge difference in my personality and my approach to hosting over the last 9 months. From the first guest that I had, where I was, very sort of protective over the space and wanted to make sure that everything was perfect and meticulous and, would be the same way when I came back, to at this point, just kind of opening my door to strangers and being like, hey, come on in. I want to hear your story. Who are you? And just kind of exchanging travel stories and anecdotes and just being really welcoming and receptive to people that are coming through. So it's a really exciting thing to be a host. But it was also really nerve-wracking the first time. But I've been lucky to have some amazing, amazing guests come through.
We've been looking at your listing a little bit. It's a beautiful place, and this is in San Francisco?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you rent out the entire place, or do you rent out part of your apartment?
So I usually rent out the entire place. There have been two exceptions where guests have reached out and I told them, it's really tough for me to travel during that time. I need to be around. I'd either be, preparing some paintings or working on some stuff, but I'll be in the apartment. And in that case, I usually offer like a slightly discounted rate and take the couch, and they're usually okay with that.
I see. Nice. So what have been some of your favorite experiences, cool experiences of people that you've met while you've been hosting?
I'd say one of my favorite experiences was I was hosting somebody the week that I launched the Nina for Airbnb campaign, and she happened to be a marketer as well, and she was in tech marketing. So she was here for a conference, and it was my first time sharing my apartment and my space with somebody, and it was just a really exciting coincidence that we were sort of in the same space and had the same interests, and she would come back and tell me, what people were saying about it at the conference, and we'd talk about it and sort of strategize on communication opportunities and things together. So it was really fun. It was almost like having a very relevant roommate for a short period of time that I enjoyed having.
That's awesome. Do you have any bad experiences?
No bad experiences so far, thankfully.
And
I think that's fortunate also in that most of the people that are coming through are here for business conferences, so there's only so much trouble that they can get into in the city when they come for that.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff going on in San Francisco legally.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, any explanation? Like, I'm not sure exactly what the rules are now. I've heard some different stories, but do you have a clear picture of what you can and what you can't do as an Airbnb host in San Francisco?
I'm probably not informed enough to speak very confidently on the subject, but I do know that as a host, I have received many updates from Airbnb about the legislation and the challenges that exist sort of even post legislation, making it a bit easier and legal for hosts. So I think there's still a battle ahead of them. I love how Airbnb is kind of tackling this city by city to make sure it's as transparent for hosts as possible. And I just hope that the cities continue to work with them on that, because it's a really great opportunity for people to connect, for people to make ends meet, and get really cool experiences as guests when they're traveling to new cities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because me and Jasper, when we first began writing the book, Jasper had all the hosting expertise, and I was just more or less brought on to write. But in the last year, I've finally been able to rent out my place. I've been using Airbnb as a guest for a long time, but I've been renting out my place. I'm going to rent it out for the entire month of June as well, and part of July. But it's been such a cool experience, either whether I rent out my second bedroom or when I rent out my entire place. It's been such a cool way to connect and meet with people from different parts of the world, and a lot of them actually I've stayed in touch with after they've left. So not only has it been a nice little extra bit of income to sprinkle on top, but it's just, I don't know, it's just been really fun. The other thing is, what's cool? I just had a guest check out of my place on Monday. I was in Michigan visiting my folks over Memorial Day weekend, and I came back. And I mean, this has been more or less the case every time I come back, and my place is like pristinely clean. It's just like how I left it. All the garbage has been taken out. They ran the dishwasher before they left. Everything. I mean, they made the beds, which is great. I mean, I would do the same thing if I were a guest at a friend's house or anywhere. But I'm just like, God, it's so cool. It's so easy. Now, I'm sure there will be times where people don't have these types of guests or experiences. But I was like, wow, it's just such an easy enterprise to run, and and it just makes you feel good, and on top of that you get paid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because it's really built around a community of like-minded travelers and explorers, there is something special about the guest-host relationship. And I traveled for about a month during Christmas holiday season, and I had 3 sets of guests that were coming through, and I wanted to make it really clear to all of them that there's somebody coming right after you, and I won't be there to make sure the apartment is okay and that the beds are made and the sheets are changed and all this. So could you help me out? And all of them were extremely accommodating. The next batch that would come through would tell me how great the apartment was when they arrived. So I think there is that really special connection that exists through the platform that you don't really find amongst travelers in any other way.
And do you have any advice for hosts that are just starting out? I know that the hosts that are starting out are always a little bit apprehensive about getting random people from the internet into their homes. And you mentioned that you had the same experience. So what advice do you have for people who are listening right now and who are thinking to start a listing but haven't started yet?
I would say communication is key, regardless of how many reviews your guests has, how many verifications and so on both ends, as a guest and a host. It really all boils down to communicating your expectations from them and your expectations or their expectations to you, and just making sure you're really clear about what it is that you can provide and can't and what you want out of them. And that really makes the experience so much better once you've communicated.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I was just doing a webinar earlier today, and that's something that I talked about as well. Especially when you're sharing a space. I think you're not sharing normally, are you?
No, just once last month, and then in a few weeks I'll be sharing for the second time.
Okay, right. And so when you're not sharing, do you always meet your guests yourself?
I try to meet them. The past couple of times, like I said, during the holiday season, I haven't had the chance to, and most of the time I end up traveling the morning that they arrive, so it hasn't worked. But I make sure to leave, something personal, a few notes, and post-it recommendations of what they can do so that they don't feel they're walking into a stranger's house, but into a friend's house, really.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, Nina, this was a really interesting chat. I really hope it's going to work out for you with the Nina for Airbnb initiative.
Thank you.
And if not, it definitely put yourself on the map. So I'm sure you get some benefit from it.
Hopefully.
And if we can help, then of course we're happy to do so. And for the listeners, thank you for listening. Make sure to go to getpaidforyourpet.com to check out all the resources that we have for you, and also check out Nina for Airbnb.com. It's really inspiring to see the work that she's put in to achieve her goal and to follow her dream and to work at Airbnb. So, Nina, is there any other place that people can find out more information about you?
I think most of the resources are on my website, ninaforirbnb.com. I'm on Twitter, Nina Mufleh, LinkedIn. I have a travel blog called eatrightwalk.com. So yeah, through any of those channels, they can get in touch.
Awesome. So if anyone has a really cool job for you, then we'll reach out.
Yeah, reach out.
All right, cool. So everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next Monday.
It was great talking to you guys. Thank you again.
Get paid for your pet. Get paid for your pet. Get paid for your pet.